Good morning and welcome back. It's been a while since the last reading. We are continuing discourse number 5, VeKeebel HaYehudim es asher Hecheilu la'asos. We read the first 6 chapters last time, and I will continue reading the final 6 chapters, as there are a total of 12 chapters. Today is Yud Ches Elul Adar Beis. Let's go right into it. Chapter 7. Now, the 3 above-mentioned matters are also found in the laws and halachos of Torah study. That is the obligation to study the laws that apply to the actual performance of the commandments in order to know how and what to do is similar to studying Torah from the angle of the nature of the body and the natural soul. This is because the performance of the commandments, as well as commandments that apply to speech, is done with the physical body and the natural soul that vitalizes it. On the other hand, the commandment to know the Torah, that is, to know all of Torah in its entirety, including matters that are not directly connected to the active performance of the mitzvahs, is similar to the study of Torah for the benefit of the soul, since the substance of this commandment is specifically the knowledge of Torah. It can therefore be said that this is why there indeed is measure to the commandment to know Torah, for the verse that states its measure is longer than the earth and wider than the sea is referring to the reasons of the laws. However, the laws themselves, as well as the midrashim, etc., indeed have a fixed measure and number to them, and there indeed have been a number of people who have learned and known the entire Torah. For since this obligation to know the whole Torah is upon a person, that he must know the Torah, and since man is limited, and therefore the Torah that he must know as it relates to this commandment has measure and limit, then there's the obligation of you shall toil in it day and night. This applies even after one has learned the entire Torah, and also to those who do not have the attention span to come to know the entire Torah. That is, this is the obligation to study Torah because of what Torah itself is. Now, since Torah as it is in and of itself is beyond all measure and limitation, its measure is longer than the earth, so likewise the commandment to study Torah because of what Torah itself is that he should be involved in its study constantly, day and night, and at every free moment, beyond measure and limitation. Chapter 8. Now we can state with even greater depth that even regarding the commandment of you shall toil in it day and night, since it is a commandment that man is commanded to do, and is not like the Torah as it is in the wisdom of the Holy One, blessed is he, that transcends all relations to worlds, that subsequently descended below. Therefore, Torah that is learned because of the mitzvah of you shall toil in it day and night is not the same as Torah is in and of itself, but is rather as it relates to man. Therefore, the true matter of Torah study as it is, meaning as it transcends all relation to man, is the study of the Torah of Hashem for the sake of its name, in that it is the Torah of Hashem, blessed is he. This type of Torah study is not solely in order to fulfill the mitzvah of Torah study, but is because of what Torah itself is. We should add that the advantage of Torah study for the sake of the name of Hashem, over and above the study of Torah to fulfill the mitzvah of Torah study, is not only in one's intention during study, but also in the actual study itself. For when Torah study is only to fulfill the commandment of Torah, the study is in a limited manner. Even in the commandment of you shall toil in it day and night, there are various restrictions and limitations as explained in the laws of Torah study. This is not so with the study of Torah for the sake of the name Hashem, blessed is he, wherein there is no consideration of any measure or limitations whatsoever, including whether or not he is obligated to study in this way or not. Thus, his Torah study will transcend the measures and limitations of time, and will likewise transcend the measures and limitations of space. This is, as our sages of blessed memory stated, one whose studies are beyond his control is different. The inner reason for this is that because the mitzvah of you shall toil in it is a commandment that was given to man, it therefore has limitations according to the limitations of man. This is not the case, however, with the study of Torah for the sake of the name Hashem, blessed is he. This is because the Torah as it is in and of itself transcends all measure and limitations. Its measure is longer than the earth, and therefore, when man studies Torah in this way, namely that his study is for the sake of the name Hashem, meaning because of what Torah itself is, then he too exits the limitations of time and space. Chapter 9. Now we may state that the novel bond between the upper ones and the lower ones that occurred at the giving of the Torah is specifically revealed in this aspect of Torah study. That is for the sake of the name Hashem, blessed is He, that is within it. That is, there is an additional aspect to this beyond the fact that in order for there to be a bond between the upper ones and the lower ones, there must be a nullification of the categories of upper and lower by drawing forth the light of the unlimited one, blessed is He, that transcends them both, as explained before in chapter 4. The example for this is in man, is that when a person is involved in Torah study for the sake of the name Hashem, there is a nullification of his awareness of separate existence, bittul b'metzios, both with respect to his body, the lower, as well as with respect to his soul, the upper. Thus, this bond of the upper ones and the lower ones is specifically revealed in this manner of Torah study. That is, the unlimited aspect of Torah, the upper ones affects man, the lower ones, such that his study of Torah itself transcends all limitation. We may further add to this that through the limitlessness of Torah affecting man, and this also applies to the descent of Torah below to this world in general, there is a revelation of the limitlessness of Torah to an even greater extent. For the limitlessness of Torah is not only in regard to its place and position in terms of its level, but rather the very fact that it is drawn down below is an indication of its limitlessness. This is to say that even as it is drawn down below, there is a felt revelation of the unlimited one, blessed is He, who is in it, such that every man's study of Torah is in a way of limitlessness. Chapter 10. Based on all of the above, we may now explain why the completion of receiving the Torah the Jews undertook depends on self-sacrifice, Mesiras Nefesh. This is because the bond between the upper ones and the lower ones comes about through the nullification of the boundaries and existence of the upper and lower, as explained before. Therefore, in order for the receiving of the Torah to be completed to perfection, the nullification, the bittul of self-sacrifice of Mesiras Nefesh is necessary. Although it is true that at the time of the giving of the Torah, when the Jewish people said, all that Hashem has spoken we will do and we will hear, they did indeed accept upon themselves to do all that they would be commanded, even should it require having total self-sacrifice in doing so. Nevertheless, as long as self-sacrifice is only in potential, for koyach, it is only from the angle of the neshama and not that of the body. However, because of the nullification of the bittul, through which a bond is affected between the uppers and the lowers, it needs to be both in the upper and the lower. Therefore, the completion of the receiving of the Torah depends upon self-sacrifice, Mesiras Nefesh, in actuality, b'poel. And because self-sacrifice is actualized, b'poel, with the body and the natural soul. And based on this, we may also understand the advantage of the self-sacrifice of Purim over and above the self-sacrifice of Hanukkah. This is because even self-sacrifice, Mesiras Nefesh, in actuality, b'poel, is primarily due to the soul. In other words, it is the self-sacrifice of the soul that even affects the body and the natural soul. Nevertheless, because the body and the natural soul in relation to themselves remain in their state of existence, therefore it is the same with the revelation at the giving of the Torah, that the bond between the upper ones and the lower ones that was drawn forth to them through the nullification of the self-sacrifice of the soul was something that is superimposed upon them. This then is the advantage of the self-sacrifice of Purim over and above the self-sacrifice of Hanukkah. That is, on Purim they had the ultimate self-nullification and lowliness even from the angle of the body, in that they were entirely abandoned to be killed by whoever desired to do so, and according to the natural order, there was no way for them to be saved from the decree. Although the decree was only against the Jewish people, and had they renounced their faith, Hashem forbid, God forbid, nothing would have been done to them. As mentioned before in chapter 1 from Torah R. Nevertheless, since the decree was not only against the Torah and its mitzvahs, but also against the body, to slay and cause all Jews to perish, chas v'shalom, God forbid, it thus came about that their very bodies were in a state of ultimate lowliness at that time. For when the decree was only against Torah and mitzvahs, as occurred during the time of Hanukkah, when the decree was to cause them to forget your Torah and to remove them from the laws that you desire, this meant that they would only be killed if they fulfilled Torah and mitzvahs. In that case, the body in and of itself is not abandoned to destruction. This was not the case, however, when the decree was to slay and cause all the Jews to perish, chas v'shalom, when the only possibility of being saved from the decree was through renouncing the true faith in Hashem, God forbid. In this case, because the decree to kill him is not because he doesn't want to renounce his faith, but rather upon his body, we find that the body, as it is in and of itself, was abandoned to destruction. Thus, it is for this reason that it was specifically the self-sacrifice of Purim that effected the perfect completion of receiving of the Torah, for because at that time the nullification of self was from the aspect of the body, they therefore were fitting receptacles for the revelation of the giving of the Torah, both from the angle of the soul as well as the angle of the body. We may say that this is why the discourse specifies that at the time of Haman's decree, the Jewish people were in a state of utter loneliness, even physically. For it is through this that he hints at the reason that they then were receptacles for the giving of the Torah, even from the angle of the body. Chapter 11. Now, according to what was explained before, in chapter 4, that in the bond between the upper and the lower there are three matters: the upper, the lower, and the nullification. It is understood that to merit the completion and perfection of the receiving of the Torah, the nullification, the bittul of the soul and the body is insufficient. Rather, it is necessary that even their existence as they are should be in a state of ultimate perfection, in that their very existence is tied to and bonded with the Torah. This is similar to what we explained before in chapters 6 and 8, that the advantage of Torah study for the sake of the name of Hashem, for the sake of the name Hashem, is not only in regard to his nullification of self, that is, that his pursuit of Torah is not for the attainment of his own perfection, nor even to attain the perfection of his soul, but also that the very existence of the one who is learning Torah, both in soul and body, is completely bonded to Torah. Through this, he escapes his limitations and ascends to the limitlessness of the Torah. We may therefore say that this is why he states in the discourse that it was specifically Mordechai, the Moshe of his generation, who awakened self-sacrifice in the Jewish people, because the Torah study of Mordechai was of the utmost elevation. Therefore, through awakening the Jewish people to study Torah with self-sacrifice, with Mesiras Nefesh, and this was especially true of Mordechai, who was the head of the generation like Moshe, thus it is through him that vitality was drawn to all the other limbs and organs. He therefore drew into them not only the nullification of the sense of separateness, bittul, but also the elevated level of Torah study, as it is in the most perfected state of man, the perfection of both soul and body. Based upon this, we may also explain that he cites in the discourse that Mordechai gathered 22,000 school children and taught them Torah. For this elevated level of Torah study, which is from the aspect of the perfection of the soul and of the body, is primarily found in school children. This may be understood through what our sages of blessed memory taught, that the world only exists because of the breath of the school children. Rav Papa said to Abaya, "If so, what is the status of my Torah study and yours?" He responded, "Breath that is tainted by sin cannot be compared to breath that is not tainted by sin." In other words, although Torah study of Rav Papa and Abaya was most certainly for the sake of the name of Hashem at the highest of levels, whereas the Torah study of school children is out of fear of punishment, nevertheless, the breath of school children has an advantage in that the world is sustained in its existence specifically by this breath. The explanation is well known that the advantage of the breath of school children is because of both their souls and their bodies. That is, they are closer to godliness because they have only recently arrived here from the spiritual world. Additionally, their bodies, which have not yet become coarse through indulging in food and drink and the various lusts of the world, as explained elsewhere at greater length. And based on the above, we may therefore state that the reason the discourse cites the fact that during the time of the decree, Mordechai gathered 22,000 school children and taught them Torah, is to explain and highlight that their study of Torah at that time was not only the nullification of the sense of self, of the soul and of the body, but was also in the state of the utmost perfection of the soul and body. However, the advantage of the soul of the school children was not really related to their Torah study. This is because their Torah study was out of fear of punishment, which is the nature of the body, and is not related to the soul. Moreover, their Torah study had no nullification of sense of self to the point of self-sacrifice, Mesiras Nefesh. This is the reason why he cites in the discourse that it was specifically Mordechai who taught the school children Torah, for it is specifically through him that their Torah study too rose to the level of self-sacrifice, as explained in the discourse. It should also be added that through Mordechai gathering the 22,000 school children, he too gained the additional elevated aspect of the breadth of the school children, and thus was able to draw this forth in all of the Jews of his generation. Chapter 12. Based upon all the above, we can also explain the reason that, as a person is obligated to become intoxicated on Purim until he does not know the difference between cursed is Haman and blessed is Mordechai, for every year on Purim there is a renewed awakening of this matter that the Jews undertook, just as on the first occasion. On the contrary, it is in a way of ascension in holiness. We may thus add that the novelty of the days of Purim over and above the giving of the Torah is in two matters. In the days of Purim, there was a completion and perfection of the receiving of the Torah the Jews received, as explained before at length. Moreover, even in the fulfillment of Torah, there was an advantage, as stated in Talmud on the verse, that the Jews fulfilled and undertook, that they fulfilled that which they already undertook to do at Sinai. In other words, that which they undertook to do at Sinai was not in a manner that was everlasting, because after that they sinned with the golden calf. The Jewish people stripped themselves of their ornaments from Mount Horeb onward. In contrast, it states about the days of Purim, and these days of Purim shall not cease from amongst the Jews, nor shall the memory of them perish from their offspring. In other words, that which they received and undertaken at the time of Purim is established for eternity. Likewise, each and every year, the days of Purim possess these two matters. That is, every year there is additional perfection in the receiving of the Torah, as explained above. And secondly, this perfection is established forever. This is why our service of Hashem on Purim is in the way of not knowing the difference. That is, one must go entirely out of himself, since receiving the Torah only comes about through the total nullification of sense of self, of bittul. And this is also why the manner through which one goes out of his sense of independent existence to the point that he does not know must be through becoming intoxicated with physical wine. This is because the nullification of sense of self, of bittul, that is to be attained on Purim, must also be from the angle of the body, as explained before at length. And this draws out the ability and strength that throughout the year matters of the body will take up no space for him, and he will automatically have no obstruction to his Torah study on account of his body. According to what we explained before regarding the elevated level of Torah study for the sake of the name Hashem, blessed is he, and that this is not only a matter of nullification of sense of self, of bittul, but beyond that, one's study of Torah also becomes in a way of limitlessness. We may say that it is the same way in the matter of becoming intoxicated until one does not know the difference. This is to say that it subsequently affects an ascension even in one's knowledge, since Torah study must specifically be in a way of understanding and comprehension. That is, he will understand matters in Torah that he would have been incapable of knowing and understanding previously. And this was explained by His Honorable Holiness, my father-in-law, the Rebbe, in one of his Purim talks. That is, through attaining the state of not knowing, the knowing that subsequently follows is of a different order and quality altogether. In general, this is because the limited intellect of man becomes one with the limitless Torah that he learns, through which he becomes one with the Holy One, blessed is he himself. For the Jewish people, the Torah and the Holy One, blessed is he, are entirely one. This concludes this discourse.